Shalom, you're watching Arutz Sheva TV. I'm Yoni Kupinski with today's Daily Update. Shalom, and we begin with the first question. Will we have a day of quiet, relative quiet tomorrow? Israel has accepted a request by UN envoy Robert Sari to enact a 6-hour humanitarian ceasefire starting tomorrow morning. Sari submitted the request to both the Israeli government and Hamas on Wednesday evening in order to allow humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. So tonight the IDF has announced that Israel will hold the fire for humanitarian window between 10 a.m. and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The IDF says that should the humanitarian window be exploited by Hamas or other terrorist organizations for the purpose of launching attacks against Israeli civilian or military targets, the IDF will respond firmly and decisively.
Israel has a right to defend itself from rocket attacks that terrorize the Israeli people. There's no country on earth that can be expected to live under a daily barrage of rockets. And I'm proud that the Iron Dome system that Americans helped Israel develop and fund has saved many Israeli lives. But over the past 2 weeks, we've all been heartbroken by the violence, especially the death and injury of so many innocent civilians in Gaza. Men, women, and children who are caught in the crossfire. That's why we have been working with our partners in the region to pursue a ceasefire, to protect civilians on both sides. Now, yesterday, Israel did agree to a ceasefire. Unfortunately, Hamas continued to fire rockets at civilians, thereby prolonging the conflict. But the Israeli people and the Palestinian people don't want to live like this. They deserve to live in peace and security, free from fear. And that's why we're going to continue to encourage diplomatic efforts to restore the ceasefire, and we support Egypt's continued efforts to bring this about. Over the next 24 hours, we'll continue to stay in close contact with our friends and parties in the region, and we will use all of our diplomatic resources and relationships to support efforts of closing a deal on a ceasefire. In the meantime, we're going to continue to stress the need to protect civilians in Gaza and in Israel and to avoid further escalation.
Hamas has fired almost 100 rockets today. Around 40 of them hit Israel, around 20 were intercepted by the Iron Dome. One of the rockets struck near a school in Ashdod. Today the IDF struck 50 Hamas targets in Beit Lahia, Shudia, Zaytun, and other areas in northern Gaza, from which the army warned civilians to evacuate. IDF sources have reported that although the terrorists are aiming for Israel, their rockets have hit Gaza over 100 times in the past 9 days. Earlier today, 4 rockets fired from Gaza were intercepted over Tel Aviv. The army reported that at around 6 in the morning, the Air Force postponed strikes on Hamas targets after identifying civilians in the area. In addition, army sources noted that although Hamas fired rockets towards the Kerem Shalom crossing, even so, the IDF continued transferring goods into Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Italian foreign minister related to the situation in the area today before their meeting.
Israel accepted the ceasefire. Hamas rejected it. We held our fire for 6 hours, and during that time, Hamas continued to barrage our cities with rockets. Hamas thus shut the door to a diplomatic solution, and it therefore bears the sole responsibility for the continuation of the violence. I appreciate the support of many world leaders, including you, for Israel's right to defend itself. And Israel will continue to do so until peace and quiet are restored. This is our right, this is our duty. We will act by it.
We expect Hamas and the groups in Gaza to revise their decision and accept the proposal in the coming hours or days. And we would use all the political and diplomatic efforts that we can put in place for a ceasefire, a sustainable ceasefire to take place.
We will fight you and we will defeat you. That is something that we are committed to do, and I think that's important for peace. I think that the most important thing vis-a-vis Gaza is to ensure that Gaza is demilitarized from rockets and from the attack tunnels that Hamas is building into Israel. This is an important part of the long-term solution. But in the immediate moment, Israel has to take the actions to defend its citizens as any normal country would against terrorists who are committing double war crimes of targeting civilians and hiding behind civilians. I think this is a standard that all responsible members of the international community should repair to. I know you do, and I welcome you again in Jerusalem. I look forward to our conversation once the ladies and gentlemen of the press leave.
The IDF continues to warn civilians of impending airstrikes on the area, dropping leaflets and leaving phone messages urging residents to leave their homes in areas targeted for airstrikes in northern Gaza. Over 100,000 people were warned of the airstrike, according to AFP, and some 17,000 only were estimated to have fled the area. Similar leaflets were dropped Tuesday night as part of the IDF's traditional warnings to reduce harm to civilians living among Hamas terrorists. Earlier this week, the IDF dropped leaflets above northern Gaza and sent cell phone messages to locals as well, warning them to move away from the Hamas command centers. IDF spokesperson Brigadier General Moti Almoz spoke with the press about the reports of 4 Palestinian Arab children who were killed, according to these reports, in an IDF Air Force strike on Wednesday. The army says that the accidental deaths were the result of Hamas using civilians as human shields. Hamas is hiding among civilian targets, Almoz said on Channel 2. Hamas continues to make cynical use of civilian casualties, and we will continue to operate within a civilian environment. The IDF is still conducting an internal investigation on the reports. If true, Almoz says that the fact that uninvolved civilians were killed is a tragic event. It is important to remember the cynical use of civilians by Hamas in Gaza, which holds them hostage by encouraging them to stay in the line of fire as Israel takes out terrorist targets. As the rocket attack continues, the Hamas is also using psychological warfare. In this video, which Hamas produced, it was produced in Hebrew, the organization warns the Israeli soldiers to refrain from entering Gaza Strip, refrain from a ground attack. Knesset member Basil Gattas caused a firestorm in the Knesset today after he staged a moment of silence for the victims of Israel's operation against Hamas in Gaza. Now, it's worth noting that many of the civilian casualties can be attributed to Hamas's use of human shields, as they have encouraged civilians over and over to become human shields as an effective strategy, as they call it, in the PR war against Israel. Dror Khanin, who was killed by a mortar shell in southern Israel, was laid to rest today. Dror Khanin, the 38-year-old Beit Aryeh man, father of 3, killed Tuesday, was buried in Yehud. Funeral was emotional and heartbreaking. Earlier, Avi Naim, head of the Beit Aryeh Council, expressed condolences to Khanin's family and friends and said the residents of Beit Aryeh are shocked and pained by the death of our friend. And as he gave out gift bags to IDF soldiers near the Gaza Strip, Dror was a special person motivated by values who found his death while he did what he loved to do the most, expressing his love for his fellow man and endless giving. Dror was struck by a mortar shell as he gave out food and sweets to soldiers in the area near Erez. Emergency teams took him to Barzilai Hospital, but it was too late to save him. His friend, Beit Aryeh's security officer, was lightly injured. Okay, that'll be all for today's edition. We'll be back next time with more. Until then, from all of us here at Arutz Sheva, IsraelNationalNews.com, Shalom.